Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Victoria Real Estate Show. I'm Andrew Plank, and with us today is Melanie Murray of NextStep. Hello, Melanie. Thanks for joining us.
Hi, Andrew.
Hi.
Thanks for having
Hey,
me on your show.
I'm super happy and excited to be talking to you today about this. This is very much needed in Victoria. So um, this is great. So we're going to get into talking to Melanie. She's our guest. She does advocacy services for seniors, and I'll let her do a self-introduction in a moment. We do not today have with us Jen, our trustee mortgage broker. We do not have our associate Jane with us this time either. So it's going to be a one-legged stool with our guest Melanie here as well. And so let's just get into it. So I'm going to talk a little bit about stats and where things are at, and then we'll just dive into some pretty interesting stuff. If you have, well, we'll let Melanie do this herself. So let's just get into that. So hold on. So as I said, Melanie's going to be talking about advocacy services for seniors. Normally we would have Jen Lowe do a mortgage update for us, but she was having some internet issues, so she is not with us. So unfortunately, folks, you're going to have to wait with bated breath to find out what the mortgage world is doing, where you could just Google that stuff. If you do want to reach Jen, we'll get her contact information out to you a little bit later. But as we do every week, we are going to be talking about new listings versus this week versus last week. We had 850 new listings go live in this last week versus 905 the week before. So we're down a little bit on new listings, which is kind of to be expected as we start moving from mid-May towards June, towards July. As we get moving towards summer, we start to see that trend go down. Pending properties are up just a little bit. So we had a little bit more properties selling this week than last week. We're seeing a bit of a decrease in price, a bit of a decrease in price decreases, if I can say that. I'm going to bring Melanie in here so she can, it's always fun actually having somebody who is an outsider, not necessarily just observing these stats as well and being able to comment on them. So Melanie, if there's anything you see here, just feel free to jump in here.
Yeah, it's just interesting, Andrew, because I've seen a lot of real estate signs up, and some are sitting and some are moving really quickly. So it's just an interesting market right now. I live in James Bay, so yeah, I'm always interested in what's happening in the market.
Yeah, as long as I've known you, you've been watching the market really closely, and James Bay is such a great little microcosm for the real estate market as well. And yeah, it's just there's so many signs out, and I'm talking to a lot of colleagues who are saying it's slow, and I'm talking to people out there saying it's slow, and yet it's really busy from my perspective. And I think based on these stats, I'm not really seeing it as slow, but there are a lot of signs out. So
Yeah, I think if things are priced correctly, they're moving really quickly. And, what do you think about the multiple offers? Is that happening?
yeah, I was in multiple offers, just a multiple offer situation just a couple weeks ago on one of my listings, and we there was a property that I had a client with some interest. We didn't end up writing on it, but it went to multiples on Monday. It was clearly going to go to multiples. You get to the point where you're looking at properties and you just can clearly tell that this is one that hits the mark for a lot of people and it's well priced. And so it should go to multiple offers because it should have more than one person interested in it.
Awesome.
No, prices, it's really price sensitive though. So certain areas are more active than others. Certainly the downtown condo market is slower than the single family market in Savage. And the downtown condo market saturated because there's new construction. There's the homelessness going on downtown. So it's not as attractive to some people who are saying, I don't necessarily want to be in the downtown core anymore. There's the no longer allowed to have Airbnb and short-term rentals. So we removed that investor market. And so that one's not so good. So it's all really specific. If you have a particular type of property in a particular area, everything sells. you know, everything sells. If you hit the price right, it will sell. So, yeah. So we have, this is what we kind of scan what's going on so far in the month, and then compare it to the same month the year before. So here we are on the 14th of May, and we've had, the 14th of May is when we're recording this. This is actually being published on the 15th of May. And these stats actually would have come out on the 12th of May, just to confuse folks. But after the 12th of May, 254 properties were unconditional so far in the month. And compare that to 763 unconditional sales in May of 2024. I mean, I don't know that we're going to get there, but we'll see. We'll see if we kind of, I'd say we're a little bit slower than maybe reaching the 763 from the year from last year. New listings so far this month, 677 new listings have gone on market as of the 12th, and there were 1,757 by the end of the month last year. And then total active listings, 3,535. So we are up 200 listings active over last year. And I only anticipate that number going a little bit higher by end of the month. I see you putting on your glasses there, so you're getting serious about reading these stats.
It's interesting. It's a pretty static market, isn't it?
It's looking, there's nothing really dramatic happening. No, it's pretty static. I would say, as some people think, oh, this bodes well, not good. There's a lot of active listings. It's more than last year. We've still got an active market, and things are still selling. And of my inventory of listings that I've listed this year so far, everything has sold except for we've got one property that's been sticking around a bit, and we just this morning did a price amendment on it, so hopefully we get some more activity on it, because price does come into play. Got a couple of new listings coming up soon. I think we are priced to market those as well. So it's definitely not an exciting market, but it's a business as usual market, is what I would say.
And we're in Victoria. It's niche.
And we're in Victoria, and everyone
the best place
here.
Exactly.
And I feel like that's something that's a constant refrain, and we want to not be too much sitting back on our laurels and just saying, well, because we're here, we're special. But I do joke that we're one earthquake away from a housing market collapse.
No, I just renewed my insurance.
Well, good. You should. And, folks, keep your insurance up. Yeah.
That's right.
But the point is that, we do joke and we say Victoria is one of the best places to live in Canada, and everybody wants to retire here, and all the stats show this. But, these things can change. We should not take that for granted. We are very lucky.
Yeah.
So here's a fun stat. I made the top 5% for Royal LePage Canada for sales last year. Thank you.
Congratulations.
But, and I love to sort of take the wind out of my own sails. That's amazing. That's awesome. But, our average price here is so much higher than a lot of other centers that it's not hard to get into the top 5 or 10% for sales. I mean, I still am really happy with how I did, and that's great. And I'm patting my own back there, but it is not as good as it sounds. If I was top 5% for sales in Canada-wide, and I was operating out of Smithers, that's an accomplishment.
Well, don't be too modest, because you represented my mom last year and you did an amazing job.
Oh, thanks. Thank you. That was fun. That was a great team effort. And so we're going to get into that, actually, because I know that was kind of the nascent kind of, I think it was in the workings for you for getting this business going, but this was kind of the trigger for you seeing where there's a big unmet need. So list to sell ratio. This is the properties listing versus selling every month, and we are at 42.24%. We're actually higher list to sell ratio than we were the month before. So it means that more is selling, and that's a good thing for people looking to sell Maybe not so much if you're looking to buy, because it means that the needle has moved maybe a little bit up from, we're still balanced market from everything I'm seeing. And we've been on the buyer's side of a balanced market, but this moves the needle a little bit more center. So, folks, this is just a midpoint reminder. If you like what you're seeing and hearing, please do hit the like button, do subscribe, and do comment and share. Even this is a pre-recording, we will respond. So let's get into our guest and talk to Melanie about what's going on and what is NextStep. Tell us about this, Melanie.
Well, you know a little bit about my background, but NextStep is an advocacy-based service for seniors. So if you don't mind, I'm going to take you through a little story, you know, some of it,
Please.
but I've been a commercial banker for 20 years, worked with RBC, some of the other big banks, specialized in real estate and development. Last year, I started a new job at one of the big banks. And 2 weeks in, I got a call from my parents' doctor. And he basically said, you know, my dad had dementia and he had had it for 7 years and he was living at home with my mom as his caregiver. And, you know, the doctor said, I just saw your parents. I'm really concerned. Your dad needs to be in a home and your mom is completely burnt out. And so I have two older sisters. I think a lot of people are going through this right now. Dementia is sort of people are living longer and people are seeing it in their parents. And so, you know, all of a sudden we hit the panic button because we'd been trying to be proactive for a couple of years, but they didn't want to move. It was just too big of an undertaking, I think. So my sisters and I spoke and we realized that somebody had to sort of take the reins here. And so I was voted as the youngest child, the one to apply for unpaid leave of absence from my job. And long story short, basically, I took 4 months to facilitate the move of my parents' 3,800 square foot executive style house in Abbotsford to move them over to the island. So, you know, my mom was dealing with the emotional aspects and complete sheer exhaustion of dealing with my dad. And she really just had no idea where to start. Like it was just so emotionally overwhelming. And so basically I came in and they still made all of the decisions. Well, my mom did with the help of my dad. Like that was a huge advocacy piece for me where I really wanted to listen to her voice and what she wanted. But at the same time, I kind of facilitated the move. So that involved bringing her to Victoria, looking at houses with you. We found a house within a week. I think you remember that process. That involved working with a realtor over in Abbotsford to get their house on the market and sold, dealing with lawyers, wealth management professionals, going to meetings, finding a care facility for my dad. So after a 4-month process, we had dad moved into Sydney All Care. Mom was situated in Sydney in a single family residence. And it was hard, right? And I realized during that process, like my dad was chief of police, my mom was an executive director, and you know, they're really smart people, but it was just so emotionally overwhelming. And I just thought, you know what, there's a real need for advocacy for seniors just not knowing how to take the next step in their life transition. So I decided to officially retire from commercial banking last year, and I started my own company called NextStep.
That is so brave and so important.
Thank you.
Yeah. I mean, that's a huge step. But, you know, folks, having worked with Melanie and seeing her help with her parents' transition and see how passionate she is, but not only passionate, organized. And like she is organized and she helps to take control of not control over someone else, but control of the overall situation so that it can create space for people to make their decisions. So as a realtor, that's what we try to do. You know, we try to build the space for people to make good decisions. And Melanie, just the way she handled her family and her parents, and also how that just opened up in her heart and space, this idea that not only, like, Melanie, you didn't actually speak to this, but there's there's the advocacy for seniors, but you're also helping to helping other people, the family, to navigate the situation.
Yeah. A lot of people don't have the time to take a leave of absence, or, they might be living in Ontario, or they just don't know what to do themselves. And so I think it allows it helps the relationship with the family as well from getting a third party in sometimes, because they'll sometimes listen to me rather than push back at their kids. And
Yep.
it takes the load off everybody, and the family can know that their parents are in good hands. I'm even dealing with somebody going through the MAID program right now.
Right.
She's signed up for MAID in June, and instead of, she's got a lot of things to wrap up. And so instead of having to do those herself, she's, giving me some things so she can spend more quality time with her people. And that's huge.
That's invaluable.
Yeah.
That's absolutely invaluable. And I think that people look at these kind of services and think, okay, I mean, and we haven't talked costs and so on and so forth, but realistically, and just like real estate fees, people say, oh, these are really high and they really, maybe they're not worth it and so forth. When you've been through the process and you've seen what gets taken off of your plate and it frees you up and your cognitive load, you're not on a, you're emotionally and cognitively freed up to make good decisions because you're
Mhm.
supported by someone behind you. That's way more valuable than trying to do it yourself and maybe miss something or just be miserable throughout the whole process.
Yeah, exactly. You should be able to be there to be support for your family in times
Yeah.
like this, not dealing with all the details. And, one of my passions is saving people time, money, and stress. And because
Yeah.
I've built this network of trusted advisors behind me that I've referred my own banking clients to for years and years and years, I
Mhm.
bring all those people in. So, it's if you're from Ontario and you're having to work with lawyers or wealth management professionals or whatever, I know the people that do a great job and they will do it for a rate cost, right? So, an example with my own family, because my dad was always doing the wealth management piece, his advisor wasn't actually paying close enough attention to what was happening. And so they weren't making the returns they were supposed to.
Right.
So, by me coming in as a third party, it was sort of like, hey, like, have you looked at their risk tolerance? Do you realize dad has dementia? Why are they in these higher risk things? So it's
Right.
kind of a holistic overview. I'm more like a project manager. I am not your wealth management professional. I am not the lawyer. I'm not going to downsize you. I'm going to bring in partners for all that. I'm the
Mhm.
project manager to sort of facilitate everything so everything goes smoothly.
Right. So tell us a little bit more about the process then. So someone calls you up and says, I'm so either a family member or someone who is ready to make a move or considering a move. When should they call you? What should they talk about? What's your process?
So you can call me anytime at any stage. There's all different types of situations. I helped a lady with a permanent residence card because the
Okay.
daughter just didn't have time. She was actually a busy realtor. So, they can be small projects, they can be big projects, but it's an hour free consultation that I would come in and sit down with the family and or senior and figure out what the issue is. Do you
Mhm.
need to be in a senior facility? Like, do you need to make funeral arrangements? What is it? And then basically, I'll go away, do up a terms of engagement, let them know what the timelines are going to be, what the partners are going to be that we're actually bringing in, and what the price would be. And then if they agree, then we move forward with that. So it's all very transparent.
Excellent. So, I mean, one hour of free consultation, you can cover a lot of ground in that, I find.
Yeah,
And um, oftentimes, you don't. It's really hard to describe sometimes what we do because we're problem solvers,
yeah,
right? We just come at my problem is how to help someone buy or sell a home. Your problem is how to help someone transition from a place that hasn't been working to a place that helps them work better, be more happy, be
absolutely.
more
Yeah.
comfortable, help assist the family. Yeah.
Yeah, and
So
it's all
we
about
don't,
it's all about community and,
yeah.
making sure people aren't isolated. And, I think once they're actually in a place that's more sort of home is best fit for them, You just want to see people flourish, right?
We see, and as I'm getting older, I'm coming up on 55, so I'm soon going to be able to call myself a senior. But you start
Discounts.
to, discounts are coming my way.
Shoppers
Absolutely.
Drug Mart Sundays or whatever it is, Tuesdays. It's exciting.
I can buy into a 55 plus condo building, townhouse if I want.
Yay.
Um, but as I start to see the runway getting shorter and shorter, it's more and more important to realize, it's so important to realize that um, the time we have, and especially while we still have capacity and money, but
Yeah.
capacity, like capacity to make our own decisions. Sometimes we need help with those decisions, but we still have capacity. So by bringing someone in and helping, let me put it this way. I see a lot of people and they could still be in their 20s or 30s, doesn't matter age. But as we get older, as I said, the runway gets smaller. They've sat in their home unhappily for a number of years
Yeah.
and wishing they'd done something. When we finally do something, they wish they'd done it sooner.
Yeah.
Or even if it's just a matter of like we preparing their home for sale and suddenly they're doing all the things they put off for years now to sell it and to get a little extra money. If they'd only done that stuff years ago, they would have been living in it happily with those improvements. But
Yeah.
you only have so much runway. So if you only have a few more years left of being able to move freely and enjoy life and make friends, why not put yourself and find a community of people around you that are like-minded, and you connect people to community.
Yeah, I completely agree. And change is hard for people, but you know, it's just guiding someone through the process. And
Yeah.
I really do think that there's some wonderful, wonderful places out there that we were talking before, like we want to move into them. They're
Mm-hmm.
amazing, and they have pub nights and they have movie theaters and like all of these different, and there's something for everybody out there. So it's just, yeah, it's just supporting people, and also, the trust factor, right? Like, uh, I think there's a lot of fraud out there nowadays.
Yeah.
And, especially with seniors, they're very vulnerable to, they don't really, a lot of them struggle with tech. So,
Mm-hmm.
it's just somebody being like, I've got you, I got your back.
Yeah, and you probably, as you get more and more into this, you're probably going to start seeing, as you said, there's a lot of fraud out there. I know that with AI, it's becoming much easier now to do a lot more sophisticated scams on people, and it's all the more important to set up and have somebody helping you set up best practices for taking care of your systems, taking care of your life.
Exactly.
So this isn't
Yeah,
just about transitioning. Well, maybe you can, correct me if I'm wrong, but this isn't just about transitioning out of the home you're existing in somewhere else. This could be about making the home you live in that much better for you for the longer time.
absolutely. So, it's really important for aging in place these days. Like, we're running out of spots in homes because the baby boomers are going into retirement. So, the government's really pushing for aging in place. And I work with contractors that actually have the Recanson certification, where they can actually come
Hmm.
in and install the guardrails, the handbars, all of those kind of things. And so,
Right.
they're part of my network as well, where if you need to get your home ready for sale, we can bring in the contractors, but also aging in place, just to whatever you need in terms of making sure that there's systems in place in case you fall,
Yeah.
and make sure that you have visits regularly and your
Yes.
medication and all that kind of thing. So I work with also some people that they're advocates for the healthcare system. So that's their consulting job, where they actually help people navigate the BC healthcare system. So
Oh,
that's
amazing.
just another, yeah, it's amazing. They're registered nurses, and they've made it into their own practice. And so, they can sit in on doctor's appointments with you. They can tell you the best way to go. So it's just bringing in a lot of different pieces to help people, whatever the need is.
This really highlights for me, like, you don't know what you don't know. And
Yeah.
And what you can do is from the 10,000 foot view is make the connections for all the people who do know in their area of expertise what's important and bring it all together. So that is such a, I mean, I'm thinking again about family and how, you probably, the first point of contact for you might be family members who are either not all on the same page about how to care for mom and dad or where they should go, or maybe there's some inequity, like some inequity in who's responsible, because maybe the one responsible person lives in town or doesn't live in town, and you've got a couple of brothers and sisters that are not so responsible. Like, being able to be that person, as you said, that comes in and supports in town locally for the family members, where the rest of the family could be back east in Ontario.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's all about peace of mind, right?
Yeah.
We're
Yeah.
all just trying to get through this crazy thing called life, and it's nice to have some support.
Yeah. Or a golden retriever.
Exactly. We all need a golden retriever.
Yeah. So
Mac
one fun
misses you.
fact. Oh, yeah. Right on. I love Mac.
I know he's
Um,
great.
so yeah, Melanie in her profile just put in as well that she loves golden retrievers, and so I had to put in a plug for Mac
I
there.
do. I do. He's
Yeah.
great. Yes.
Is there anything that you want to sort of that we haven't touched on here that you want to talk about or make sure that people are aware of, or
Yeah,
um,
you know, real estate professionals, you guys are problem solvers big time, right?
yeah.
It's sort of what I do. You figure out what you don't know, and I think you probably get pulled into sometimes because you're in real estate because you love people. I think first and foremost, right? You're relationship builders, those kind of things. So you might get pulled into situations where you don't necessarily have the time or the means for. Um, you know, working with seniors can sometimes, if they're in a vulnerable situation with cognitive um, situations or not the family support, sometimes it's good to bring in someone like me just from a um, sort of every make sure the transaction stays clean because I can actually help represent that client in terms of making sure that they understand the contracts and the docu-sign and so you're not helping them downsize and spending your weekends doing that. So just think of me as a tool in your toolkit where I can actually hopefully help the transaction be smoother
Hmm.
and less time consuming for the real estate agents out there. Um, it's I know that um I know that you are held to a strict code of ethics and those kind of things. And so, if you ever have a situation where you're not quite sure, it could be legally messy, pull me in. I'm happy to help.
Right off the bat, we're often reminded, of course, that, well, first of all, contract law, someone has to have capacity to sign a contract. And if someone is experiencing some dementia or is elderly and maybe is having a hard time making decisions, and we definitely don't want to step into an arena where we are seen as in any way taking advantage of someone in a vulnerable place. So having someone able to come in and assess their situation and support, and also be that other set of eyes is really helpful. I've certainly worked with a lot of people who, before we get working together, and maybe we never actually end up working together because they are emotionally stuck. They
Hmm.
are they know they need to make a change. They're in their home and it's not working, but they're not ready to call. Like, they've maybe talked to a realtor, they've talked to me, but then they get scared, they get
Hmm.
overwhelmed. I remember one woman who, she was really concerned with people coming into her home and seeing her mess, the clutter, the overwhelm, and she didn't know where to begin. And it was a conversation that we didn't really have fulsomely, I think, but to be able to help understand that, we have resources, we can help get you there, but you can talk logic to people, and they will never hear you unless you can talk emotion to them as well and really understand what's the underlying pieces that are going on for them. And a lot of times people are scared. This is they've been in their home for years. And even if the change on paper looks good, you're going to be in a community of other people. There's a lot of, I think, shame out there on how your life has gotten to the point where it is sometimes, living in the same home for some years and starting to isolate and maybe not take care of yourself and your belongings and your exterior as well. So having the public come and look at your home being broadcast for sale is even just that is hugely emotionally scary. So being able to have someone who can, as you said, this is your next step. Your next step business is about advocacy. And that advocacy piece is, I think, a piece that a lot of seniors are missing. I mean, I know there's great advocacy out there for all kinds of marginalized groups, but seniors don't necessarily know who to call. And you know,
exactly,
you're the friendly neighborhood Spider-Man. No, Ghostbusters. It's Ghostbusters. Who are you going to call?
Exactly. Next step.
Yeah. Next step. Who are you going to call? Next step. Okay. So how do people reach you if they want to reach out to you?
Well, they can go on my website, which is www.nextstepvictoria.ca. I've got a Facebook profile under NextStep, also Instagram. Or you can email me on Melanie Murray at nextstepvictoria.ca, or call me on 250-886-8808.
Excellent. Okay, so I hope that folks do take Melanie up on this, because it is an excellent service, and I think it's very much needed, and especially in Victoria, where, as they say, people are either newlywed or nearly dead. There's a few other sayings about Victoria, but I don't remember them all now.
Me neither.
I don't know if they're necessarily true, but did you have anything, Melanie? I don't think that's probably.
I don't think so. I just just want to thank you, Andrew. It's always great to see you and to collaborate, and we've worked together a couple of times now, and really appreciate the support. And just if you or any of the other agents out there just need to chat about or bounce anything off me, just please do give me a call, reach out. Like my page on Facebook. I'm trying to grow it, so that would be wonderful if you can, and Instagram, and let me know how I can support you.
Excellent. I've just liked your Facebook page. I'll get into the Instagram and do that.
Thanks, Andrew.
Stick around after the show. We'll just have a quick chat and debrief.
Sounds good.
So I'm Andrew Plank. I'm with the Vibe Collective. I'm licensed with Royal LePage Coast Capital Realty. And if you do want to reach me, I'm at 250-360-6106. Email is info@andrewplank.com. And website is www.andrewplank.com. We are also at the realvibe.ca website for the Vibe Collective. That's realvibe.ca. Jen Lowe's not with us today, but she is Jen Lowe, a mortgage professional with Modern Mortgage Group at Dominion Lending Centers. And her number is 250-217-4925. Don't call her today, because apparently she's got 20% battery left on her phone. Jen at jenlow.ca, and jenlow.ca is her website. And Jane is Jane Johnston with the Briar Hill Group at Remax Camosun, and her number is 250-744-0775. And you can reach out to her at jane@briarhillgroup.com and check out her website, briarhillgroup.com, as well. So we come to you live, usually sometimes pre-recorded, every Thursday at 9:30 a.m. And we welcome you to join us there, and we look forward to seeing you again. Melanie, hey, thanks so much for joining today. It was a really nice conversation.
Thanks, Andrew. That was fun. Thanks.
Thanks. Bye, everybody.